Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.
Welcome, everyone. Lee Brecheen. Hope everybody's having a great Friday, whether you're driving your car or truck or at home on your computer or on your cell phone. We're going to have a great show today. We're going to talk about Winnfield High School. That is our high school of the week. Our high school is Winnfield. We're going to talk about the NFL. We've got some NFL notes. Our recruit of the week, Maason Smith from Terrebonne High School in Houma. We're also going to have our mailbag. We have a question about ULL football, their offensive line. And we've got our college notes, kids that are transferring from Louisiana recently, and my thoughts on Jim Harbaugh's opinion on the possible NFL draft, some decisions that could be changed with the college football and eligibility and that sort of stuff. But let's go ahead and get into the first segment. Our high school spotlight of the week is Winnfield High School. What a storied high school. I mean, if you're not from Winnfield, it's been a long time since Winnfield's won a state championship. 1982, to be exact. But if you're not from the town of Winnfield, or you're not from North Louisiana, you probably won't understand, but I'm glad we can bring out today to the listeners of the history of a great, proud program. In the 1970s, this was a program that basically was one of the best programs in Louisiana for football. From 1971 to 1978, Winnfield had undefeated seasons, both of those seasons, 71 and 78. Some say the best teams ever was in 71 and 78, and then obviously the state championship in 1982, and they had a great team in 1979. But think of this. In the 70s, 116 games were played for Winnfield. 86 games they won. They won 86 games out of 116 games in the 1970s. That's a winning percentage of 741. Incredible. I mean, they were just, I mean, Doug Morrow will go down as one of the great coaches of that program. He was the head coach of the 1982 state title team. Also another great coach that's been at the program in the past twice was a coach by the name of Joe Dahshur. Joe was the head coach in 1966 to 69, and then again in 70 to 74, and was also an assistant coach in the program for many years. And believe it or not, the great mastermind offensive coordinator Larry Dotrieve was head coach at Winnfield in 1976 to 1978. And those were great years, too, at Winnfield High School. From 1966 to 1987, 20 years without a losing record at Winnfield High School. 1982 state champs. They were runner-up for state titles in 1971, 1976, and 2011. Runner-up state champions. Known for some great football players, too. Tommy Campbell, to me, sticks out, was a center at LSU. He was on that 82 team, 79 team. Jeffrey Dale was a great free safety at LSU, a high draft pick, played San Diego Chargers for a long time. Anthony A-Train Thomas, if you remember, was one of the great backs of Louisiana, went on the Chicago Bears, played 2001 to 2007 in the NFL. Anthony Thomas was a phenomenal running back at Michigan. That's right, he was a Wolverine. But Anthony, 6'2", 225 pounds, that could run a 4.5 40, and was an All-American at Michigan. Did not sign with LSU, one of the few players to come out of Winnfield to not go to LSU, highly recruited. Also remember Ricky Chapman was a great linebacker. Came out in 1987, played at LSU. And also, here's a little bit of trivia. This is another player that went to Winnfield. He finished at Alexandria High School, Ash. DJ Charkh. DJ Charkh was at Winnfield High School for 2 years and was a great player there, but ended up transferring his senior year to Ash High School in Alexandria. But DJ Charkh, you can call him a half of an alum. Currently in the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We all know what he did, a wide receiver at LSU, great punt returner. Is Lynn Bankston. And Lynn is a proud alum. He's a graduate of Winnfield. And back in the day, Lynn was one of the greatest kickers and punters to ever come out of the program. Also a quarterback for the program and a defensive back. And he was on some of those great teams in the 70s from 1974 to 1976. Last year they had a tough season. They went 4-7. They got a pretty good team coming back in 220. And you know, Winnfield is like any program out there. You know, you'll have 20 great years, 10 great years, 5 great years, and then you might go through 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of just trying to get to the playoffs because maybe the talent is not there like it used to be, or maybe you know, it's just, you know, whatever's in the school, that's what you're going to have. I mean, this is not the NFL. This is not college football. There's no free agency in high school football. So, but I think Winnfield is a very proud football program. I hope I shed some light to my listeners of how much talent has come through there, the coaches, the winning. Again, if you go back to the 1970s, and the 60s, one of the best programs in the state for winning football games. It's also known for 3 governors. You know, Earl K. Long, Oscar Allen, and the famous Huey P. Long. I mean, it's the only town with 3 governors that they all went to Winnfield High School. But keep an eye on Winnfield this year. In 2019, Lynn Bankston took his program to the playoffs. And unfortunately, they played Amite High School, one of the better programs in the state, and lost to Amite in the first round. But they did get to the playoffs. And we wish Lynn a lot of success in 2020 whenever we start again, which hopefully will be on time. If not, I just hope for a good full season for high school football. But, you know, keep an eye on it. And I hope we educated some people, some listeners, about the great program at Winnfield. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about our college notes. We're going to go over some transfers from Louisiana, and also what Jim Harbaugh mentioned the other day on ESPN with he wants some changes to the NFL draft, and I've just got my 2 cents of maybe agreeing with him on some of the stuff that he wants to change. We'll be right back.
Like what you hear? Well, make sure to check out our website, lafootballmagazine.com, for all the latest recruiting information statewide. This week, we catch up with Mandeville offensive guard Mackie Mallow, Jennings defensive tackle Keenan Landry, and Thibodeau quarterback Luke Alamo. So if you want to get your recruiting fix around the state of Louisiana, go to lafootballmagazine.com today.
Welcome back, Lee Brecheen. Glad to have everybody. I hope everybody's enjoying the show. I hope you enjoyed the first segment with Winnfield High School. We've got our college notes, and just remember to download a show. Just be sure to download one of our shows. If you love the show and you want it to grow, which we will, please download a show, because that helps us with stats, and it helps us with, you know, business owners saying, who listens to this show? And we do have a lot of listeners so far. We've got a lot of coaches, parents, media people, and just fans. You know that we've noticed we even got a few listeners from outside Louisiana in over 16 states that have started listening to us since we started the podcast back in January. Late January was when we did our first podcast. But again, be sure to download a show and that helps us grow as for our stats, you know, to show to people. But we're going to go ahead and go into our college notes, segment 2. 2 weeks ago, I was bragging on a quarterback from A-Meet by the name of Armani Gilmore, who's at Kentucky. And since that show 2 weeks ago, Armani Gilmore has now put his name in the transfer portal. You just never know when a kid's going to leave a program. Now, Kentucky's got a lot of quarterbacks. Now, back when Armani signed with Kentucky, they didn't have a lot of quarterbacks. But now they're deep, but they're 5 deep. And I can understand this in a way. But then again, he's only going to be a redshirt freshman, and he's leaving before his redshirt freshman season. Meaning he signed back in a year ago, redshirted, played in a game, because you can play in a game with the 4 games you're allowed to play in. Kind of wish you'd have stuck it out. Go through your redshirt freshman season, see how you do. Somebody could get hurt. You could beat the second team guy out. You could be the guy. But for whatever reason, Armani Gilmore is going to be transferring the A-Meet native from Kentucky. And look, if he does stay in the transfer portal and he does leave, some of these kids can go back in, and sometimes they're not invited to go back. But if he leaves, I look for Southeastern College, Southern University, Grambling, McNeese to be fighting for this kid. I mean, here's a dual-threat quarterback who I think has a lot of talent. And I don't think he left because he couldn't start. I just think he just left maybe before he should have. Like a lot of these kids that just maybe they need to stick in one more year. That's what the college coaches are talking about the most about the transfer portal. Just stick it out your first 2 years. Don't leave after 1 year. But if he could go to a 1AA program, he could sit out at Southeastern because they've got 2 quarterbacks, if that's where he goes. Or I think Southern would be a great place for him because they need a quarterback. So does Grambling, so does McNeese. And I wouldn't rule out Tulane. Tulane could be a player here. He'd have to sit out with the rules because he's not a graduate transfer. He's only a redshirt freshman. That's the thing. He's going to have to sit out if he goes to another D1 school. Continuing on in our college notes, Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of Michigan, was in the news about tweaking some of the rules for the NFL draft with colleges. And I'm not going to go through everything you read on ESPN.com, but there is one thing I agree with. And I don't know if the listeners agree with this, but I think it's something to bring up. It's fun to bring up. But I think if a kid, let's say from Temple, is a junior, doesn't have his degree yet, and he thinks he's going to get drafted, so he puts his name in the draft, he keeps his name in the draft, and he doesn't get drafted. Like 7 rounds go by, not drafted. I think that kid should be able to go back to college. And I don't think we should, the word punish someone that's young, that needs his degree, and say, look, you can't come back. I think you should be able to come back if you're not drafted. And I think that could change your life. Because if you can't come back and you're a junior or a redshirt sophomore and you still need your degree, and then you can't make an NFL team as a free agent, what are you going to do? It's a life changer. So I think that's one thing that the NCAA should look at, is to allow a young man or young woman that puts their name in the draft, any sport, even the NBA, even the MLB, if you're not drafted at all, allow that young person to come back and get their degree and finish out their athletics. Now, the only thing about this is that the coaches have to sign another class, and they have a numbers crunch. And that's the only thing that could be interesting. But I'm going to tell you what, most of the kids that go pro that don't get drafted, I can guarantee you they're needed still at these colleges for athletics. They just, for some reason, if you don't get drafted, it's tough. It's tough to see someone not get drafted that puts their name in the draft. Continuing on, I want to talk about the quarterback commitment this week for LSU, Garrett Nussmeier. I actually had a chance to work with Garrett's dad, Doug Nussmeier, when Doug was at Michigan State, and that was 2003 to 2005. I was doing, we were filming games in Louisiana, the whole state, and we were selling the film, the recruit film, to help kids to colleges all over the country. And I was calling colleges, trying to get accounts. The sales part of it is that you're calling, telling them what you have and what you're trying to do. And Doug Nussmeier was one of my first clients from Michigan State. He actually, we talked on the phone. He hired me to work with Michigan State for Louisiana. They wanted to recruit Louisiana because he played for the New Orleans Saints. He knew Louisiana. He's with the Saints from 1994 to 1997, Doug Nussmeier was. And I really enjoyed working with Doug. And honestly, we only talked over the phone for that 1 year. And he left. He left to continue his career and left to the St. Louis Rams. And Garrett Nussmeier, by the way, is a great young quarterback that I'm glad LSU A, recruited, and B, got a commitment from him out of Flower Mound Marcus in Texas. We're going to talk about that high school, too, all the famous alumni that have come out of Flower Mound Marcus High School in Texas. But Doug Nussmeier, has a great NFL background, Denver Broncos, Indianapolis Colts. He even coached in the Canadian Football League, was a good quarterback, was drafted in the 4th round, born in Portland, Oregon, graduate of a great high school in Oregon, Lake Oswego, one of the great programs in Oregon for recruiting. And Doug played at Idaho, and that's where he played for Scott Linehan, who's at LSU. And the connection with Linehan being hired by Orgeron was the smartest thing ever, because the Nussmeier family trusts Linehan coaching his son, because Linehan coached Doug. Now he gets to coach Doug's son, Garrett Nussmeier. Hopefully he'll stay around the next 2-3 years for LSU's quarterbacks coach. And then you got Steve Ensminger. I didn't say offensive coordinator. That's Steve Ensminger. But what a great pickup. I like Garrett. I think he's very athletic. Honestly, I keep up with Louisiana recruiting and watch film and take pride in that. But I did watch film on this kid, and I see a lot of what LSU doesn't get in recruiting at quarterback. They got a quarterback that's, like a Joe Burrow with his athletic ability to run and throw, quick release, and he's a coach's son. Anytime you recruit a quarterback, I'm gonna sign the kid who's got a dad that played football, a dad that's a coach, or a dad who played in the NFL or played college ball. That's the quarterback I want to get, because they have a high IQ of the game. They know the game, and they love the game, and those kids usually compete like Joe Burrow, Joe's, coach's son. And so I think Garrett is only a junior. He's going to be a senior for the class of 2022, people. He's not going to enroll next year. And he's already close to 6'2", about 185 pounds. And by the time he's a senior, his dad's 6'4". So by the time he's a senior, we're talking about a kid that's going to be, 200 pounds, close to 6'3", and his rankings and all that will move up. So I don't get caught up into that. I'm sure LSU doesn't. But let's talk about Flower Mound Marcus. Let's talk about the famous athletic background people that have come out of Flower Mound Marcus, where Garrett Nussmeier is the quarterback. How about Marcel Brooks, who signed with LSU last year? Marcel Brooks played at Flower Mound Marcus High School. How about Marcus Smart with the Boston Celtics? That's right, graduate of Flower Mound Marcus in Texas. How about Keaton Sutherland, starting offensive lineman for the Miami Dolphins? How about the general manager of the Chicago Bears, Ryan Pace? Yes, he went to Flower Mound Marcus High School. How about the pitcher, one of the pitchers for the Houston Astros, Ryan Presley, graduate of Flower Mound Marcus? Also, a very, very good linebacker with the Los Angeles Rams, Josh Carraway. And finally, a big-time tight end, Caden Smith, that went to Stanford, but now is a tight end with the Giants. Caden Smith, who LSU tried to sign, went to Flower Mound Marcus. So I hope that was a good segment for everybody, the background. Like I said, I had a chance to work with Doug Nussmeier in recruiting. He, hired me to do the Louisiana video and information for Michigan State. And I really think this is a great family. And this kid's going to be a great college quarterback. And I know it's a couple of years away before he arrives at LSU, but they've got him a phenomenal young man who's moved around a lot because wherever his dad's coached, that's where he's went to school. So he's been in a lot of schools. And he's had a great program right now at Flower Mound Marcus in Texas. We'll be right back with segment 3. Coming up, we're going to have our Recruit of the Week from Terrebonne High School, defensive lineman Maason Smith. We'll be right back.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the show. Be sure to download One Show if you're a fan of the show, so we can grow the show, because that's the only way they can track our listeners. And we're just trying to grow it and get to where we need to be for those, people that make those decisions to back it, Our Recruit of the Week is Maason Smith, a highly recruited defensive tackle from Terrebonne High School. Terrebonne's in Houma, Louisiana. Here's my thoughts on Maason Smith, because I don't get into the stars. I get into what I'm seeing. I get into seeing all the top recruits come out of Louisiana since 1991, and prior to that, actually going back to 82, with Dalton Hilliard playing at Patterson, and going all the way back to Tommy Hodson at Central Lafourche High School back in the early 80s. I've seen all the great D tackles that have come out of Louisiana. Defensive ends, nose guards, all the different techniques. I think Maason Smith is going to be an offensive lineman in college. If you look at the recruiting sites and all that stuff, they got him as a defensive tackle. And he's got a lot of potential. He's 6'4", not 6'5". He's 6'4", about 300, 305. And he's being highly recruited because he moves so well for a big guy. So when he goes to these camps in helmet and shorts, he blows the media people away by the way he moves, in shorts and helmet in these camps. And the way he's timed. I mean, he runs a true, legit 4.9 40, which is really great for a guy that's 300 pounds. And he's very gifted, but he's yet to peak. Meaning he's not hitting his peak level of his full ability. I think you'll see more of that his senior year. But I think the way he moves, the way he plays, the way his body's built, the way he is, I think he's an offensive guard for college. Now, a lot of people who follow recruiting are not going to agree with what I said, but just, hold me to it and talk to me in 2 years. I'm also the same person that said Devontae Lee from Amite would move to linebacker. I was on a couple of radio shows after LSU signed, and the host, I can't remember who the host was, but he's like, Lee, how can you say Devontae Lee's going to be a linebacker? I said, well, his body and the way he moves and the way he's growing and his instincts and his toughness, he's more suited for linebacker. And sure enough, Orgeron moved Devontae Lee to linebacker before the end of his freshman season, and I think he's going to be a great linebacker. And I don't think there's nothing wrong to talk about what position you're probably going to be in college. College is a whole different deal than high school. And I think Maason could be a high NFL draft pick as an offensive guard, because when you run a 4.9, 5 flat at 6'4", 300 pounds, I think he's more suited for offensive line. If he stays on the D-line, my comparison would be Glenn Logan from Dahshur, who plays at LSU. Glenn is a solid, very good D lineman that is part of the rotation. He's everybody's waiting for Glenn to dominate, but he's had some guys around him that have been pretty good, like Rashard Lawrence. But he's got to step up his senior year and be more productive. But Glenn Logan also plays all the techniques on the D-line, DN. He can play nose. And if Maason stays on the D-line, I think that's what he'll be. He'll end up playing the technique at nose guard or maybe some DN, but more of a gap filler than a guy that's going to sack the quarterback in college. But I think as a college offensive guard, he could dominate. He could be one of these guys like Sadiq Charles maybe one day, somebody that moves really well for a big guy, that can pull, that kind of thing. And very few big 300-pound guys can pull in college football. There's so few of them, and that's why you don't see guys pulling all the time. Not many people can. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have our NFL notes. I'm going to talk about the late Don Shula. And we're going, and the mailbag's going to be segment 5. We'll be right back.
Like what you hear? Well, make sure to check out our website, lafootballmagazine.com, for all the latest recruiting information statewide. This week, we catch up with Mandeville offensive guard Mackie Mallow, Jennings defensive tackle Keenan Landry, and Thibodeau quarterback Luke Alamo. So if you want to get your recruiting fix around the state of Louisiana, go to lafootballmagazine.com today.
Welcome back to Louisiana. I want to say Louisiana Football Magazine. That's our magazine. But the Sports Scouting Report with Lee Brecheen. Be sure to download our shows. As a fan, we're going our NFL Notes segment. Before we do that, we just finished our Recruit of the Week with Maason Smith. If you want more information on Maason Smith or Terrebonne High School or Winnfield, be sure to pre-order your 2020 Louisiana Football Magazine preview on our website, lafootballmagazine.com. Monday, let me mention this. Monday, we're launching our new site. We've been working on our site for the last 6 months. I think everybody's going to love the new look. Be sure to go up on Monday and order your new magazine. Everything will be ready to go on Monday. To order our North magazine and our South magazine that we're working on right now as we speak. But we can't, all the information, I can't put it on the podcast. I've got to save some stuff for curiosity. And so be sure to get our magazine, and we have more in-depth information in the magazine for Winnfield and also Terrebonne, or any school we talk about every week on the players, a little more in-depth on the players and who's coming back and recruiting. Let's go ahead and go to our NFL notes. It's really sad to hear of the passing of Don Shula, former, longtime coach of the Miami Dolphins, one of my favorite coaches of all time. I mean, Don coached 33 years in the NFL, and he's the all-time leader in victories for an NFL coach. 347 wins as an NFL coach. That's incredible. And he's coached in the most games. He's first in the NFL. He coached in 526 NFL games, which is an NFL record. in most consecutive seasons, 33 in a row. And you know, people forget that he was the head coach of the Baltimore Colts and that they went to the Super Bowl. And he also went to the Super Bowl with the Miami Dolphins. I mean, we're talking about a man that went to 6 Super Bowls. And at one time, they didn't think he was going to be a great coach because he lost 4 Super Bowls. But he won 2 Super Bowls, and he had the great Bob Greasy team with Larry Zonka, you know, all those great Miami Dolphins players that came out of that era. You know, Zonka's one of the greatest fullbacks ever. Larry Little, you know, all the great players to play for Don Shula. We talked about Dan Marino a few weeks ago, the Mark Clayton, Mark Dupers. Dwight Stevenson, a Hall of Fame center from Alabama. But I remember from LSU players, A.J. Dewey was a great player as a defensive end for Miami. Lifford Hobley, who played at LSU, went to Byrd High School. Blake Ferguson was just drafted as a long snapper for Miami from LSU. Devon Gottschall's a starting defensive end for Miami Dolphins from Plaquemine, Louisiana. And the late David Woodley, quarterback from Byrd High School, was a quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. And, you know, they had the Blackwood brothers. You know, lot of tradition with Miami. It's just the program, the team has been down for so long since Don Shula. And, you know, Cedric Donaldson was another player from LSU, a defensive back that played a little bit with Miami. Again, will go down as one of my favorite pro coaches of all time. I would have to say my favorite pro coach of all time was Bill Walsh from the San Francisco 49ers. I really like the late Bill Walsh. I mean, he was the architect for, you know, Joe Montana, Roger Craig, Tom Rathman, you know, Jesse Solomon. You know, all those great players, Fred Dean, that came out of the San Francisco organization, Ronnie Lott, defensive back. I mean, we can go on and on and on and on. But what a great, just sad to hear he's passed. I mean, he lived 90 years old, lived a long life. And, you know, growing up, and that was my era, like a lot of listeners that are in their 40s. But Don Shula, again, condolences to his family and the organization, the Miami Dolphins. And I wish Miami the best. I mean, I hope Tua can stay healthy and be the guy finally. I mean, you know, they're known for Bob Greasy and Dan Marino, those 2 great quarterbacks. And ever since those 2 quarterbacks retired, you know, Tannehill had some success. Actually had a great year with the Titans last year. But they haven't had great quarterback play since Dan Marino. You know, like I said, just some of it with Tannehill. Tannehill stayed hurt in Miami. But again, I hope the Dolphins can get back to the playoffs and win a playoff game and bring the magic back. I mean, it's a great city. I mean, they love their football in Miami. They love the Miami Heat. They love the Dolphins. I love the jerseys. I remember the old Orange Bowl where they played. It was just a great venue to watch the Miami Dolphins. I do hope they get it back. Somehow they can get back to the playoffs and just get this thing going back. And I wish Tua the best. I hope Tua can stay healthy. I really do. I like him. I just didn't pull for him when he played LSU. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and we're going to end the show with our mailbag. We have a question about ULL football. We'll be right back.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back. This is segment 5 with Lee Brecheen. It's our mailbag. This is when people write to us. And we look, if you're listening to the show, don't be shy. Write to us to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and write to us with any questions you might have about anything, football, baseball, basketball, track, high school, college, pro, you name it, man. We'll talk about it. If I can find a way, we'll do it. But our question this week, we've got one question, but it's going to be a long answer because I want to be very thorough for the person asking. But the name we got is Trahan. Trahan from Crowley, Louisiana, wants to know, Lee, how good will the Raging Cajuns be on the offensive line in 2020 after losing 2 players to the NFL draft, which is a record for the Raging Cajuns program to have 2 O-linemen drafted in the same draft? Trahan, I'm going to tell you something. I think ULL is going to have the best offensive line in the Sun Belt Conference. And that's the reason they're going to have a chance to win a lot of games in 2020 with Levi Lewis, the quarterback from Scotlandville, who's really come on. And they've got those great running backs, Mitchell from Erath, Regis from Archbishop Shaw. Even though Raymond Kale was drafted, they still got a lot of running back talent. And they've got a lot of talent. Hudspeth recruited well. Ricky Bustle recruited well. And now they're recruiting well currently. They got a lot of great players on this team that are under the radar. And look, if you're listening to this and you're not a Raging Cajun fan, let me tell you this. For them to have 2 offensive linemen drafted, I'm about to talk about some more NFL linemen they have, which is scary on how good their O-line was in 2019. But coming back to answer Trahan's question from Crowley, they have several NFL prospects coming back on the offensive line. I think it's an SEC offensive line. I really do. It's the heart of their team outside of their running backs. But here's we're going to go through them one by one. They have a kid by the name of Ken Marks coming back, who's going to be a senior. Ken's out of Beaumont Central High School, very great program in Texas. He can play guard or tackle. Ken is 6'4", 300 pounds, can run about a 5'1", 40, strong and mean. Ken will have a chance to go to the NFL, whether he's a draft pick or a free agent. Their center is Cole Prudhomme, who's out of Eunice High School. I saw Cole play at Eunice. Cole's going to be a 6'3", 298-pound senior center. He is a true center. In high school, Cole was a great player. He was tough, quick, strong, smart. That's what you need to be a center. Now, he was 6'2" and a half coming out of high school, weighed about 265, 270. And he didn't get a lot of big offers, but he's one of those guys that I thought would be a great college player because of all the intangibles. But Cole Prudhomme could be a starting center in the NFL. He's a senior, and he's one of the best centers in the Sun Belt Conference. Backing him up is a future NFL center by the name of Landon Burton. Landon is a redshirt freshman from St. Thomas More High School in Lafayette, and I saw Landon play in high school, and let me tell you something. Landon could have went to the SEC and played football also. Landon is 6'2", legit, about 290, 295, and runs about a 4.9 40. Special player. I mean, he's tough. He pulled in high school at St. Thomas More. And Landon is all muscle, and he's super smart. He's quick off the ball. And what a great, we're talking about ULL that's not getting a lot of hype. I'm going to promote them today where they're well-deserved. But to have 2 pro prospect centers, you got a pretty good offensive line. And I'm going to continue with the O-line. Here's a kid to keep an eye on that LSU did not recruit, and I was really shocked they did not. Now, Ken, I know LSU can't offer everybody in the state, but I see kids that I think are going to be special, and they're not ranked. Who cares? But Osiris Torrance from St. Helena Central played defensive tackle in high school. He was 355, 6'5", coming out of high school, ran about a 4.9. Freak of nature. He's redone his body, changed his body. He's 6'5", about 342 now, and runs about a 4.9, 5 flat. He's a sophomore. Will be in the NFL one day. Has a great, great future. And look, let me tell you something. If you're going to watch college football this year and you turn on the TV, check this kid out because he's going to be a new starter on the O-line at UL. He's a beast. He has no fat on him. And he didn't have a lot of fat on him when he was 360 in high school. And if he played D-line, if you remember in the Superdome, his senior year, he helped St. Helena go to the state championship game. I never seen a kid this big tackle people sideline to sideline. Now they moved him to O-line, and he is just, man, this guy's going to be special. Another player that's going to be a pro prospect, or is going to get a shot at getting highly drafted before he's done, is Max Mitchell. Max Mitchell's from Neville High School. He's 6'6", 300 pounds, has been starting since his freshman year. He runs about a 4.9, 5 flat. Super strong, can play guard or tackle. Max Mitchell. I thought this kid was an SEC lineman coming out of high school, and the reason he signed with UL is because the O-line coach, Rob Sell, who played at LSU, he went to Neville. So obviously he's going to be able to recruit Neville High School. And then there's also Nathan Thomas, who can come off the bench or might start from Chalmette High School as a redshirt freshman. 6'5", 281 pounds, could be a guard or a tackle. There's also Tamaji Porter from Mobile, Alabama, really Theodore High School around the Mobile area. Tamaji's 6'2", 320, a redshirt sophomore. And there's Jax Harrington, who's a redshirt freshman from ERAF, a very good-looking player that I saw at ERAF. 6'4", 307 pounds, and there's no fat on this kid. And I think he could be a great player. He's still raw, but he very athletic. Jax, Jax Harrington. And there's another player from Neville High School that's going to be a pro prospect, Logan Knoll. Logan is 6'5", 281. He's a redshirt freshman from Neville High School out of Monroe. He's another one of these kids that can run about a 5 flat, 5'1", and he's very strong, very smart, very quick. And then there's also Carlos Rubio, who's going to be a senior from Alexandria High School, Ash High School. 6'4", about 285, 290. A senior that could be either a guard or a tackle for ULL. So ULL has one of the best offensive lines in the Sun Belt. And if they were in the SEC, they'd be up there with the SEC linemen. I mean, I'm going to tell you, it's a very good offensive line. And you got to have a good O-line to have a good offense in college football. And in the Sun Belt, they should dominate in the trenches on the O-line. Now, defensively, we'll see what happens for them. But offensively, with Mitchell from ERAF and Regis from Shaw running behind this O-line, they have such a great, great future, such a great potential this year with Levi Lewis at quarterback, who has really come on. That dual threat everybody thought Levi would be, he's become that, and he's become a very good passer. And when you have a great O-line, you get good quarterback play. Your jersey stays clean, You're not on the ground a lot. You stay healthy. You get to complete the season. So Raging Cajun fans, be excited because the offense they have a wall to build around with those great backs. We hope you enjoyed the show today. As always, I hope our listeners learned some things and some history of Winnfield High School. Our recruit of the week, Maason Smith. We talked about the late Don Shula. We talked about Nussmeier, and then we ended it with ULL, Raging Cajuns football, the offensive line. We'll be back on Monday with another great show. And again, write into us, talk to us, get the magazine at lafootballmagazine.com. Pre-orders will be ready starting Monday. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and be sure to download one of our shows if you're a fan, because we need to grow. Because I've got special ideas and I've got a vision for this podcast to become really, really special and to add on to what we're doing and to do some other great things to the podcast with our scouting report, the sports scouting report. Look, everybody have a great weekend. Be safe. And thank you to all our medical professionals out there, all the great job that you're doing in the world. Thank you. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.